Brian.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one! Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Tennessee, fires the three, and
He hit it.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Wednesday, November 30th, the last day of November. Holy cannolis. We're into December tomorrow. What a great show. Another one on hand today. Looking so forward to this. Dustin Schutte not with us today, unfortunately. He's on assignment. But Bob Kravitz, Kyle Neddenriep, Jay Bilas, Scott Davenport, head coach at Bellarmine, and Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer, will be along. Jay Bilas and Scott will join Rick Bozich and myself. So very much looking forward to that. We'll talk to Jay Bilas, of course, about tonight's Indiana North Carolina game, amongst other things that are going on. There's plenty of things outside of the games to talk about. Michigan's Hunter Dickinson and more join a campaign calling for greater revenue sharing with athletes. We're going to talk about that. The National Collegiate Players Association. Let's see. The Big Ten ACC Challenge. We'll go through the results of that as that continued last night. Indiana's women team will take on North Carolina tomorrow night. Don't forget about that. Indiana football quarterback Connor Bazelak in the portal. Not a surprise there. Indiana leaves Indiana with one healthy quarterback right now. He'll be a sophomore. The college football playoffs. Georgia, Michigan, TCU, UCLA. What else was it going to be? But the cool thing about that, it's the first time I think that you've ever had the cross-section of the country, top to bottom, side to side, coast to coast. So you got that. Let's see, what else we got going? Oh, we're going to hear from Hubert Davis. Met with the media yesterday, and I got to tell you, I was a little surprised by what I call an unintentional lack of respect for playing at Assembly Hall. He gave it no never mind. I also asked him about, John, I have to have you pull this one up, but well, I guess it's my entire question to him. My first question to him was about playing a team like Indiana that is a much, much deeper team. It's a very deep team that plays 8, 9, 10 guys routinely. And, North Carolina does not seem to be the case. And I asked him about, playing a team that goes so deep with a team that has a little – a smaller rotation. And he seemed completely befuddled by that question, as if he had no idea what he said. I don't know where that question comes from. Well, I'll tell you where that question came from. Because of North Carolina's top 6 players, unless my math is wrong, and that is very possible. But going through the current stats, the top 6 players of North Carolina play 97% of their minutes that are played. Indiana's top 6 players play 69% of the minutes played. That's exactly what I was talking about. And he acted as if he had no clue where I was. So I'll go over that with Rick or Bob. We'll talk about that. Trent Dilfer headed to UAB, it looks like. We haven't really talked about Luke Fickell and Matt Rule. We've mentioned it a couple times. Tiger and Rory says that if there's ever going to be a marriage of any kind between LIV and PGA, Greg Norman must go. No one likes the shark, baby. No one likes the shark. How's everybody doing? We appreciate you jumping on and being a part of us. Brought to you by our good friends, Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymorehonda.com where you will find the best deals on new and used vehicles each and every day. Also, Endeavor Hospitality in the WOW Club. Make sure you go to the Endeavor Hospitality MyWowNetwork.com. Sign up for the WOW Club. Start earning WOW rewards to great places like BB's Market, where they have an unbelievable selection of meats and steaks, pork chops, bacon, whatever you'd like. Bakery, a full-service bakery that is incredible. And great breakfast and lunch, brunch. I mean, incredible stuff. I can't wait to go there. I may go there today, as a matter of fact, on my way into the game. Looking forward to that. Kyle Neddenriep will be along with us today as well. Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame announces the class for 2023. And we may know a few of these. Eric Montross from Lawrence North, Todd Leary's high school running mate going in. Brian Evans, Todd Leary's collegiate running mate going in. Brad Stevens and James Blackman Sr. So how about that class of 4 going into the Hall of Fame? That's a pretty strong class, man. I mean, there's not a lot of states that can boast that. I mean, seriously? James Blackman Sr. played at Kentucky. I don't remember what his career did after that. I'd have to look it up, but I know Brian Evans and Eric Montross both played in the NBA. Brad Stevens, kind of heard of him. So, yeah, what a strong class that is. What a strong class that is. The college football playoffs, like I said, were announced: Georgia, Michigan, TCU, UCLA. But the funny thing is, I keep seeing projections that, which one is it? I said UCLA, didn't I? I meant USC. I even wrote down UCLA. I have no idea why. USC. But anyway, I've seen a ton of projections that still project Ohio State with about an 80% chance of making the playoffs. Playoffs? And USC not. That is because they're expecting USC to lose to Utah again. Their only loss, a 1-point loss, 43-42, way back in early part of the season to a ranked Utah team. For whatever reason, they don't think that they'll get by Utah, which that would give Utah a 4th loss, and that's a pretty damn good 4-loss team, I'll tell you that. I'd like to see it stay the way it is. It would be cool, like I said. That way you've got East Coast, West Coast, Michigan at the top, TCU from Texas. Buddy, there's top to bottom crisscrossing right there. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline this morning. Mike saying, hey, 5 lefts. Larry, Michael, Yeah, Bob Knight apparently at basketball practice yesterday. Saw the photos. Jesse, Pete. Some cool pictures. Sean says, can they all hope? Yeah, Liberty football. I forgot to write that down. Yeah, I sent that tweet out yesterday. Tom Allen, his name popped up as a potential candidate for the Liberty job. And I've got to tell you, man, that would be a great landing spot for Tom Allen. That's the thing. These things don't always happen at the right time. I'm not saying he's not going to be the coach after next season, but if he weren't, there are two jobs that have come open. Was it the South Florida job that he would have done well for, and now this Liberty job?
Yeah, those are both of the jobs that his name has come up in.
And the Liberty job is one that involves it's a religious school. Tom Allen has never been afraid about sharing his faith, so that would go right along with him. It's a good fit. I mean, it's a good fit. They're serious about football. The pay would be no different. But you're not going to see, I cannot imagine a scenario where Tom Allen would leave, or anybody would leave a Big Ten job to go to Conference USA. But stranger things have happened. So there's that. Let's see. I saw something else that reminded me. Oh, yeah. World Cup. Thanks, John.
That's right.
I'm at John Howe.
John, the commenter, John.
Yes. USA 1-0, 1-0 over Iran. And how do they not like it pronounced?
They don't like it pronounced Iran. It's pronounced Iran.
Oh, so I said it correctly.
You did say it correctly, yep.
USA beats Iran 1-0 yesterday. I make sure to not pronounce it correctly that time.
And Christian Pulisic put his body on the line for the goal that the U.S. got as well.
Now I got to ask, what was this horrific injury he suffered?
I believe it was it involved a part of his body that we can't talk about in the air.
I heard pelvis, his pelvic injury, but
yeah, that was the situation. He collided with the goalkeeper as he was going for goal.
Right, I saw that. So he should be fine then.
Oh yeah, well, he played part of the rest of the game before he got. I think
I saw it. Yeah,
point, but
yes, John, as you are correct, he got racked.
And they'll take on the Netherlands this Saturday in the first round of the knockout stage.
Say that again.
The U.S. will take on the Netherlands in the first round of the knockout stage.
Oh yes.
They got second in their group. England won their group, and so they play runners up and winners of different groups and stuff like that. So
yeah, so there you go. Cool. Larry says it's hard to justify hiring a guy that has gone 6-18 the last two seasons. I think he's talking about Liberty. That's not just about that. Ross says we have gone down to the point where Liberty has put more passion into football than IU. Shocker. There is that.
And Hugh Freeze, who was most recently at Liberty, is kind of a mentor of Tom Allen's, isn't he?
Well, they spent a lot of time together, I think, at Ole Miss.
Yep.
Hugh Freeze was the head coach there.
Yep.
So there's always going to be a landing spot. It just may not always be as a head coach first.
And even if he wasn't, let's just say Indiana moved on from him, which they're not going to this.
Which first, I was going to say, and first of all, we're talking about it as if he's not in the room here. So,
like Hugh Freeze just got named head coach at Auburn.
Right.
He could end up as D coordinator at Auburn if that were the case. But like he'll find something if that were to come about.
Yes, but like I said, I would be shocked to see him leave to take the Liberty job.
So would I. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So there's that. So why there's no reason to even talk about that.
Break.
Perfect time for take a break because we have got nothing but a lot of hoops coming up today, man. Bob Kravitz will join us next. He's going to be in the house tonight at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, the place where Hubert Davis, it's just another game. Crowds never affected a game, he said. We'll find out. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with the great Bob Kravitz right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting
Hey, Jim, since you teased that, it would probably be good, like when you come back into this segment, if you're going to talk about the UNC game, you teased Hubert Davis, talk about the clip, go into it, and then continue your discussion with Bob about it. I just think that'd be a good way to flow into it if you want to use the clip.
You mean with Bob?
Yeah, with Bob. He's here.
Yes. Oh, I see that. What? I don't know what hat are you wearing now, man?
Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, Stanley. There was so much writing on that I couldn't read it.
Yeah. Stanley Cup champs, baby. What are you wearing today?
Just plain old Adidas, man.
Just Adidas.
Bob, do you think the Indiana-Purdue game could have worked out differently had Dexter Williams not gotten hurt?
Probably not, but I think it would have been closer. I mean, they were moving the ball. Yeah. Once Bozich came in, it was over.
And now Bozich is gone.
Yeah, again.
So that means he's a grad transfer. That's the only reason he can do what he's doing, right?
He's got 2 years left, too.
Now, that wouldn't make any sense because you can only do the one. You can do the one-time transfer rule technically twice because of being a graduate student.
Right,
would be the second time.
Right. Yeah.
So he has to have only one more year of eligibility if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the way it is now, man. If you lose your job, you run.
The do run, run, run. The do run, run. I have no shame, Bob. Have you not known that? Oh man, are you guys? You're in. Oh yeah, you're in the house tonight.
I'll be there.
I guarantee it. I saw. Oh, I know. I saw you on the seating chart.
Yeah, I have no idea where I'm sitting. I might sit in the press box or sit in the press room and watch on TV.
No, well, no, you're down low.
Am I down low? Okay.
Oh
yeah,
in
the room, but okay.
You know something?
They
I
have
noticed
you right
yesterday?
behind Coach Woodson.
They do?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Well, you're on the same row as Don Fisher.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Something I noticed yesterday. When I type your name, I type it with an S. If I write it with a Z.
That's
10 seconds.
Strange.
I always catch it, but I'm like, damn it.
Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio fans, here on this Wednesday, the last day of November. It's time for Bob Kravitz to get out and get some Hanukkah shopping done. I almost said Christmas shopping.
Well, my wife is Catholic, so yeah, I get Christmas shopping done. So I spend money on every holiday. It seems like. we got the Jewish thing going. We got the Catholic thing going. We're all confused around here.
Yeah. Holidays no bounds when it comes to money, baby.
No,
It takes anybody's and everybody's. It doesn't matter. Your most recent piece was about the Colts flop, as a little bit of Jeff Saturday's inexperience certainly showed on the sideline during that game last week.
There's no question. I mean, look, I've seen experienced coaches misuse the clock and misuse timeouts. So, if this is a one-off, then okay, fine. But yeah, I mean, he looked like a coach who froze in the moment. And to his great credit, he admitted it. He conceded yesterday that he should have called a timeout after Matt Ryan scrambled for a couple of yards. They put themselves in a situation where they had to hurry up. They ran a play with the wrong personnel. And that's something that you would think that a coach with experience a mistake that a coach with experience would not make. So there's going to be growing pains. The question is, how long will he have to make them?
Just a quick, yesterday I saw that Tom Allen's name popped up as a name to watch for the Liberty job.
Well, why would he? I mean, if IU gets rid of him, yeah, sure. Why would you go to Liberty from a Big Ten school? I realize Liberty's got more money than they got a ton of money. I mean, but why would you leave a Big Ten school?
More money than God. Almost said
that's what I was going to say.
I knew it. I was ready to go. I was ready for it, man.
Yeah, and he's a very religious guy himself. I don't know how his religious views square with the whole Billy Graham, the kind of the Christian conservative folks they've got in Lynchburg, Virginia. But it might be appealing. But again, if you look at it objectively, I can't see him leaving a Big Ten job for Liberty.
Me either. I think, let's see, there were some games last night. Of course, the ACC Big Ten Challenge going on. Michigan loses a tough one at home to Virginia. Season's not starting out that great for Juwan.
No, not really. Not really. I missed the game. My wife made me watch real TV last night. She's like, we go out to dinner. She says, you're not watching sports tonight unless IU or Purdue or the Pacers are on. I'm like, damn it, none of them are on.
There's some good games last night too.
I know. I'm sure there were, but I was married.
Speaking of which, Indiana and North Carolina tonight. We met with Hubert Davis yesterday, and I asked him two questions, and I was shocked at his answers to both. He seemed shocked to one of my questions. My first question was, I asked him about playing a team like Indiana that is very deep, that goes 8, 9, 10 guys very consistently. And North Carolina has had a shorter rotation, and he seemed befuddled that they had a shorter rotation. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm off my rocker. So I went back and looked, and if my math is correct, their top 6 players play about 95% of their minutes.
Right.
And Indiana's top 6 players play about 69% of their minutes. So why he was confused to that question, I'm confused. And then I asked him about playing at Assembly Hall, and he acted as if it was like going to play at Tennessee Tech.
Yeah, I saw the quote. Well, we played in front of 80,000 at the NCAA Final Four. You've been to Final Fours. The crowd is huge, but
you can't hear him. He can't hear him.
Right, and it's not terribly partisan because you'll have 10,000, 20,000 people for one school, 10, 20,000 people for the other school. And 40,000 who just wanted to go to an NCAA Final Four game. This is going to be 20,000 raging lunatics who are probably already online outside of Cook Hall, waiting for the doors to open. It's going to be electric tonight. And the game is lost a bit of a twice out in Portland, and I believe they went from 1 to 18 or something along those lines. But this is still a marquee game, and it's one that Indiana needs to win just to show level where they can compete.
Let's, John, you want to hit that? See, the first question, of course, is Bob jumping out. We'll wait for him to come back in. But the first quote, you want to play that one, John?
But in terms of the environment, I played in college. I played in the NBA. A game is a game. And so whether it's at Indiana or at home, this is North Carolina. We went to the Final Four last year. There was 80,000 in the Superdome. So I know they're excited about having an opportunity to compete against a really, really good Indiana team, and looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah. Well, we're North Carolina, nothing bothers us. We played on big stage, and that's true. But I just don't think you can compare the 80,000 people at an NCAA Final Four game to 20,000 complete lunatics who are going to descend upon Assembly Hall tonight and try to make their lives as miserable as possible. I understand where he's coming from, but I think he's kind of misguided.
Well, the biggest thing is you will just, whether you believe it or not, you're going to say, oh yeah, it's going to be a very, very tough environment to play in, well known, blah, blah, blah. And you say it just even if you don't mean it. He didn't even say it. It's like completely, not only blew it off. And actually on my question, I referenced Roy Williams, if you talk to him, because of his comments that he made the last time that he was here.
Yeah, he wishes he had these kinds of crowds all the time.
Yeah, and so I was like, that was a little odd.
Yeah, that was very, very interesting, response.
And then John, I asked him, and then the second part was I asked him about, playing the team in a team like Indiana that is a team that has shown a great depth, and that is not something we have seen from North Carolina. But here was his response to that.
We don't have the response, but it's what you said earlier. Whenever he just kind of blew it off, we discussed it earlier.
Oh, you don't have the response. All right. Yeah,
I believe you.
So he was just like, I don't understand that when I play this guy and this guy, and I'm like, okay. All right, let me go back over, look at these numbers again.
The numbers are very interesting, very telling, very revealing.
Tell a different story. And that's the thing that I think where Indiana's going to get North Carolina is there. You are playing in a tough environment, whether he wants to admit it or not. That is going to provide some problems. But if one of those guys, North Carolina guys, gets in any kind of foul trouble or whatever, they don't have the bench doesn't have the experience to play in an environment like that. I don't think so. And they've lost 2 in a row. Does that make them more dangerous?
Well, they got to have some self-doubt at this point. I think it's important for Indiana and the crowd to jump down their throats early and take away their belief. This is a team, I haven't seen a lot of them, but they've got to be a little on edge about who they are and where they're going. But man, they still got some great frontline talent. I mean, Baycott and Love, and they are they got some talent. But like you say, they just go 6-7 deep, and that could be a problem coming into Assembly Hall.
What does this game mean for the program, Indiana? It's on national television.
It's a lot like the Kentucky game a couple of years ago, where they'd been horrible for years and years, and it was kind of an arrival game. We're back, we're relevant, we can beat these teams. I think it's a message game to themselves and to the fan base that they are indeed deserving of their ranking, and they are elite. What is the updated ranking? What are they right now? 11?
North Carolina's 18th. Indiana's
No,
number 10.
Indiana.
They're number 10.
What about you? Huh?
10.
10. Okay, I thought it was 11. Yeah, so I mean, it's a chance for them to show that they belong there, and that this potentially could be a special season. So I think it's a lot like the Kentucky game and the Watch Shot game, where it would signal Indiana's revived hopes. Their return to the higher ground of college basketball.
And on the other turn, though, how much pressure is on Indiana to win this game? Because everybody said, oh, North Carolina, they've lost 2 in a row now. It's going to be at home. You're playing in this environment. You got all this stuff now. It works in reverse. You've got to win this damn game now.
I would agree. And then you still got to go. You got to go to Kansas. You got to play Arizona. We're going to find out if this team is for real, or if it's a fraud team. And I don't think they are. I think they're going to be very good. And look, you can lose some of those games and still come out on top later in the season. On the flip side, look at Purdue. Everybody's screaming about how great Purdue is, and they were wonderful out in Portland. But remember last year when they were beating Villanova and doing really well in the pre-conference season. And then come the regular season, they were very good, mind you, but they didn't win the Big Ten regular season. They didn't win the Big Ten tournament, and they got knocked out by St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. So what you do now and what you do in March are two completely different things. I don't think if they lose, it means they're doomed. I just think it means they got further to go than maybe we would have hoped.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be just a fun game, but more importantly, it's going to be last year the Purdue game was pretty off the charts, but I think this is going to exceed that, and the program, the fans need it. It's going to be fun. I can tell you that, no matter what.
Oh, it's going to be insane. And I've never been a big fan of Assembly Hall itself. I if they just blew that thing up and built a new one, it wouldn't break my heart. But what the home court advantage is so pronounced at Assembly Hall, and it's one of the great venues just because the fans make it so. And I wish the kids could sit closer to the court. That would be nice. But
that has been a topic of conversation lately. It's Indiana is not taking advantage of what it could really be. I mean, It could be a place that becomes even worse than it's ever been to play in. I mean,
to play in, right. Yeah, I've never really understood that, but at the same time, people had season tickets and they got money, and
it's all about the money, Bob. It's all about the money.
Yeah, kids can sit up in the nosebleeds. And they are nosebleeds.
Are they? Brother, I will see you tonight. Looking forward to it.
Man.
You have a safe drive.
All right. Take care.
Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. Make sure you give him a follow. Be a subscriber. I am. Looking forward to see him tonight at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. We've got lots more coming up. Kyle Neddenriep joins us next. We'll talk about the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame inductees. More coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends at GoTeam, a part of the WOW Club. Make sure you go to the Endeavor Hospitality WOW Club Network. Sign up, start earning WOW rewards today. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's a Damn it. Darn it. Darn it. Darn it. Darn it.
All right, Kyle knows we're ready for him. And Jay Bill's confirmed too, by the way. I don't know if I told you that yet.
You did not.
He's good for 9:30.
Jay Bilas. Jay Bilas. Yeah, last time this was strictly on radio, so I'll get to look at his bald-headed.
Watch what you say. You never know if he's watching right now.
Kidding. Sometimes I wish I was bald-headed.
Same here. I'd pull the Chris Daughtry, just grow a beard and no hair on top.
Dude, it's got to be a great life.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is Cal Neddenriep, right?
It is. He should be on here in just a couple moments.
Oh,
and yeah, you'll have about 15-ish minutes with him. All right, here we go.
On all 2017 through 2021 Honda certified pre-owned Accord, Civics, CRVs, HRVs, and Pilots. See dealer for financing deals. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, brought to you by our good friends at RE/MAX Realty in Indianapolis, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're looking for a home in that area, you need Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Please welcome Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing, Jim?
Good, man. There's been so much good stuff you've had come out lately that you're keeping me busy, man. Just reading your stuff. But the funnest thing that's come out though is the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame inductee class. Man, that's a pretty damn strong class.
Yeah, it really is. That kind of struck me too. Is every year it's kind of fun to go through the list and read who made it, and read their bios again, and like, oh yeah, and kind of revisit some history. But yeah, that class especially with James Blackman and Montross and Brad Stevens, and gosh, I mean, it just seemed like a list that like a lot of guys who probably could have been in already who made it this time. So yeah, it's a really tremendously great class, even more than usual, I'd say.
Yeah. So let's see. They should get Todd Leary to be the presenter, because you've got Eric Montross going in, his running mate from high school, and you've got Brian Evans, another running mate from college, going in. So there, let's see, and he might know James Blackman Sr., but the big difference there, and in Brad Stevens, of course. But what a select group! Did James Blackman Sr. play in the NBA?
I think he just played pro ball. I don't think he played time in the NBA. Obviously, played at Kentucky, but around here, obviously known for what he did at Marion, and then coming back to coach at Marion, coaching his kids at Marion. So, but yeah, I don't believe he did, but more known probably for high school and college.
Yeah, of course, playing at Kentucky, like I said, and his coaching, which continues to this day. So, but yeah, what a great class. When does that happen?
It'll be in March. Yeah, there's some other cool names in there, like guys that I've either talked to over the years or have read about, or people tell you about, like Oscar Evans, who played at Shortridge in 1968, a really, really good Shortridge team. And he was the leading scorer there, went on to Vincennes and Butler. And then, Darren Fitzgerald, who's kind of a celebrity, around, he went to Indianapolis, Washington in 83. And he was one of the first really great 3-point shooters. He went to Butler. He had 12 3-pointers in a game, kind of in the early days of the 3-point line. So there's some cool stories that I'm hoping to get to. Dennis Goins, who played at Rushville, and he now works at Ben Davis. He was in the TV for a long time. Now teaches a class, or teaches multiple classes over at Ben Davis. Super guy. Jack Hogan, who played at Broad Ripple, little guard who has a fun story. Played at DePaul back when DePaul played like Indiana State and Butler and those guys and beat them. Kirk Mans, who played at Michigan State. He's an athletic director at Seymour now. So even beyond those big names, Drake Morris, who probably should have been in already, from East Chicago, Washington, who he was Mr. Basketball runner-up in 77, went on, had a great career at Purdue. One of my favorite ones, though, is Jim Oler from Economy. Economy is like this little town, sort of roughly over by Richmond a little bit. And when I did my Jim's book, it was probably one of my favorite ones to go visit. Economy, of course, not even open as a high school anymore, but still has that old gym, and it just basically looks like a white barn on the side of the highway. And I walked in there one night, and there was people playing in there, like a pickup game, and it is so tiny of a gym, it's just unbelievable. But Jim Oler played there in 52, or he graduated in 52, and then went on to Florida State and set all kinds of records as a player down there. And unfortunately, he's passed away since. But just a super kind of that old school Indiana type of a story. There's many stories within there, but yeah, it's a really a great list, and of course everybody's got their own personal stories, but those are a few that I could think of.
See, those are the ones that you so properly pointed out. I would have never known anything about Jim Oler. And the fact that not only was a great Indiana high school player 50 years ago, but he went to Florida State and set all those records. It's amazing how many that we don't know about, that we should know about. And this is one of them. And was Economy the name of the school?
It's the name of the town. It's just like a little, it's probably, I don't even know how big, maybe 700, 800 people at the most, I would say. And the gym is still, if you can find it, Mike Fender, who used to work at the Star, he had a cool picture of it. And I don't even know if it's still out there, but that was one of my favorite ones, just because it's just like this. And it used to have this little, not even a balcony, but people would just sit up top on this wood plank basically and watch the games from up there, back in the 40s and 50s. And, it long since has not been a school, but that little barn is still there. It just looks like a white building along the highway there.
As of 2010, there were 187 people, 73 households, and 47 families living in the town.
Oh, wow. It's even smaller than I thought it was.
So there's that. But that's cool. Learning all that stuff. So make sure you go back. I missed it because I didn't see all those other names. I saw the first four, so I guess that was just the tease that I saw of the big names. I missed all those extra names that were on there. So make sure you go to the Indy Star and pick that up, man. That's something cool.
And sometimes those big names they're not able to make it, so they don't put them in yet. And then so like Montross, I would think this is his chance to make it back or whatever. And then Brad Stevens, I'm sure, has been busy with stuff, and maybe they waited on him for his coaching career to get over or whatever. But so it would be fun. I think Brad, obviously he can captivate a room, and it'd be fun to see what he has to say when he comes, and Montross too, and all those guys. I mean, it's just James Blackman, and those are names that everyone knows, and those are names that resonate with people. So that'll be fun to hear. And like I said, some of those other names too. I mean, some of those are a lot of the emotional stories that I can't imagine how much it would mean to somebody who played in the 50s or 60s who finally gets in the Hall of Fame. So that's always really cool.
Eric Montross probably cost Indiana national championship without question, winning one in 93 at North Carolina during a time that Indiana was playing in Final Fours and was a national title contender already. Last week Todd said that Knight still probably pissed at him because he couldn't get Montross to come to IU. But man, can you imagine that? That would have been something. But
yeah, he was one of those guys. Seemed like he played North Carolina for a decade. He's just one of those type of guys.
What's he doing now?
He works for the radio. He does Tar Heel radio, so he'll probably be back in Bloomington tonight, I would think.
That's what Todd thought possibly that he did. So, but yeah, that's cool. What else have you got coming up now? Besides, you got that out of the way.
Oh, just covering a lot of basketball, a lot of I was out last night at a game. There's the Brownsburg Santa for Sneakers for Santa event coming up Saturday. That's got a lot of just kind of working on a little preview on that, tracking some stuff down, and that'll be a really good event. 7 games. You got probably the highlight is Cathedral in Centerville, Ohio is the late game, but then you got Ben Davis and Kokomo. So you got probably the Ben Davis and Cathedral. I think you could put 1, 2 in either order in 4A, but then Kokomo with with what they've got, and they're a team that even besides Flory, they're getting some guys back from football. They lost their first game to Westfield, but still getting some guys back. So you got Flory Badunga going up against that Ben Davis team with Zane Dowdy and all the talent that they have. But then other games too, you got Trent Sisley coming in. Playing against Brownsburg at 4:45. Before that, you've got Miles Colvin and Heritage Christian against Joey Hart and Linton Stockton. So 2 of the better seniors in that game. And, some other games too, Zionsville, Gary 21st, Northwood and Beech Grove, and Bloomfield and North Central start the thing in the morning. So a lot of really good games coming on Saturday, pretty much a full day if people want to make it out, even for part of that. That'd be probably the highlight of the high school basketball schedule that day.
I'm sitting here, not to go back, but to the guys going into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Dennis Goins. I'd sit here and realize I worked with him once on a project when Damon Bailey, his senior year, I worked with Dave Conrad out of Louisville WHAS TV to put together a Final Four preview show that was seen all over the state. But Dennis was one of our photographers that we used. He was at Wish at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there reading that about him being an award-winning sports photographer, videographer and whatnot. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, oh man, yeah. Color that gray hair black. And I remember him now.
Yeah.
Dennis, holy cow.
Dennis is a super guy. He obviously he has a lot of impact now as a teacher. He kind of transitioned into that, I don't even know how long, 20 years ago, I think, roughly. And actually got to sit down with him this fall. The Pike football coach he's got an interesting story himself, but Dennis is kind of a father figure for him. When he came to Ben Davis, he was homeless for a while. He had a mom in the picture, but they came in from Virginia, and Dennis, really took him under his wing, Mike Brevard, and they've maintained a really close relationship for the last 13, 14 years. So, just that kind of guy, I guess, and that's obviously he's got his own basketball history in it, whatever, but has gone on to make an impact in other ways too.
It's just awesome how things come back around. But yeah, amazing to see people stay in the community like that too, and just how his path has just the tributaries, man, through Indiana athletics, whether it was playing, shooting it, covering it, and now being an administrator. Wow, that's a very unusual path.
Yeah, it really is. And, just like I said, just a super guy. I mean, I don't think you could find many people say anything negative about him. So pretty cool what he's doing. And obviously that's a great honor for him to be inducted.
Five Lefts asks, how far do you see Fishers going this year?
Well, they're I think pretty highly of them. I've got them ranked third in our area right now, behind Cathedral and Ben Davis. And I still think they could win their sectional. It's a really tough sectional, though. I mean, and they're young. Jalen Harrelson he's playing point guard for them, and he's 6'6", but he's also still a sophomore, so he's learning, and they've got a pretty young team around him. So, the thing about all those teams in that sectional are basically beatable on a given night, or can beat each other on a given night. It's just such a deep sectional. I mean, if they can get through there, they could make a pretty deep run, I think. But yeah, it's kind of hard to say at this point, just because they've obviously got some work to do as far as, just getting everybody up to speed and able to play at the same level Harrelson's playing at, or playing with him. But they had a tough time with Ben Davis in their opener. They didn't, they were I didn't think we're probably quite ready for that intensity that Ben Davis brought on defense. And it kind of showed up in the second half or the fourth quarter of that game. So, but any team with Jalen Harrelson is going to have a chance to go pretty far. He's a special player.
Yeah, he saw 28 points last night in a game that he played.
Yeah, I mean, they played Metropolitan, which that's not wasn't much of a contest for them. So they'll have, they have a really tough game coming, Noblesville on Friday night, and that'll be a great test. That's a sectional opponent, and I think will tell us more kind of about where Fishers is right now as a program, rather than last night.
Cool. What's up next for you, my friend?
Like I said, just working on that preview for Saturday's event, and we'll have some more football postseason stuff coming out. Saw Mount Vernon play last night. I'll have a little something on their two freshmen who are both really good players, and yeah, so lots of stuff as usual.
The 24 class still it's one of those classes. It's been down a little. People say it's down a little bit. There are still some very good players at the top, like Flory Badunga and those guys, but it doesn't seem to have the depth. But are we missing that? Is it deeper than we think it is?
It's not as deep as the class above and below it, I would say. But yeah, I think there's always a tendency to say, oh, this class doesn't have, but then you see, like, throughout this year, we'll find players who are, that you need a little time to mature and maybe become better players than we thought they were. So, I'm always hesitant to say, oh, this class is not, because I've seen people be wrong about that before. I do think, though, it does not have the depth of 23 or 25. 25, I think, looks like a really interesting class. And then 26, I haven't seen enough to know. I've heard it's not as deep. But, yeah, that's so far off that it's hard to say. But, yeah, 24, Cannon Catchings is a great player. And he's in that class. You've got Jack Benter, who's a great player in that class. You got Flory, obviously, is a top 10 national player, and rightly so, I would think. So there are, again, it's not as deep, but I do really like that top end. I mean, Jack Benner, he knows how to play. Cannon Catchings is he could be an all Big Ten player, I think, at the end of the day. So, it's just, there are players there. It's just not the depth.
Especially if he ends up at Purdue.
Yeah.
But buddy, I appreciate you very much, and we'll let you get to it.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Have a good one.
Kyle Neddenriep joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We appreciate him very much, as always. Brought to you by our good friends at Barber Pop Real Estate Services down in Louisville. If you're in that southern Indiana area, make sure you reach out to Barbara at Barber Pop Real Estate Services, or Matt at Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. We're back with more that will include Jay Bilas, who will join us. Scott Davenport's going to join us later, and Rick Bozich, of course, the Hall of Famer. Stay tuned. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
I'm going to bring in, so Scott Davenport is also in the lobby. I'm going to tell him real quick that we have him for a different time, and then I'll bring Jay Bilas in, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Coach Davenport.
Yes.
Hey, we actually have you for 10:10. Is that okay?
Yeah.
We just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any miscommunication. We have Jay Bilas at 9:30.
Okay.
We have.
All right. I'll hit you back.
Sorry, Coach.
Hey, Jay, how are you, sir?
Great, Jim. How are you?
Good, sir. Waiting Rick join us here in a second.
Okay.
Man, you are a busy working man.
Yeah, it's hell, isn't it? Going to basketball games and sitting on the sidelines.
It is, but it's the travel. I mean, how many games
that
do
has
you
been
do a year?
that honestly has been an issue this year. I've already been to San Diego and back, Maui, Portland and back. I'm going from here to London, then New York, then Houston, then LA, then back for a tournament closer to home. So it's been the busiest travel schedule I've ever had. Maybe they're trying to get me to sign with somebody else. I don't know.
I don't think anybody else could handle that schedule. There's no way. How's Dick doing?
He's great. Yeah, he's doing great. Yeah, he had lymphoma, which is a 95% cure rate. So he's doing great.
He's been on with us a couple times. We appreciate him.
Yeah, me too.
I got about 1 minute.
Are you in?
And then Rick will be joining us a couple minutes after we come back.
I'm in Indiana now. Yeah, I was here yesterday. I saw practice, and I've been here for, I don't know, 24 hours maybe.
Not at the Graduate, I can tell.
Sadly, no. I'm at the I'm not even sure what this place is called.
Hyatt or
some sort of suites. Some suites.
Oh.
What is the name of this place?
I'm
not sure what the name of it is. I don't recommend it.
I can't believe they don't have you at the Graduate, man.
I tried to get in there, but it was loaded apparently.
All right, guys.
The game snuck up on us apparently.
Yes.
No one knew. It's like Chris. It's like
Cheryl
Christmas
Sizemore
sneaking
from
up to a
Remax
retailer.
Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. It is a big game day as tonight the Indiana Hoosiers will host the North Carolina Tar Heels as part of the ACC Big Ten Challenge. One of the top games on ESPN, and of course, its top analyst, Jay Bilas, will handle the duties. He's here with us. Mr. Bilas, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be back in Indiana. And Jim, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
We appreciate you. And the break was talking about the job itself is something I know you love, but the travel, and I don't think people get the travel. And they say, oh, you just sit on a plane. No, it's not that, man. It is, you got to get to the airport. You've got to sit, and it's, you could be on a plane with, who was it that just got taken off the other day?
OBJ.
Yes, you could have been on a plane with OBJ, but it's the travel and where you're going. You're all over the place, man.
Yeah, this is honestly the hardest travel year I've ever had early on. I've already done 15 games, I'd say. And so I've been to San Diego for that aircraft carrier game. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So San Diego and back. I've been to Maui, Portland. We had 12 games in 7 days between Maui and Portland. Came back. I had less than 24 hours to get here. And then I go from here straight to London for a game between Kentucky and Michigan, then to New York for the Jimmy V Classic. And then I have more after that I haven't even contemplated, just because I want to keep some sort of sanity. But I don't think anybody feels sorry for me, Jim. I mean, I sit in the best seat in the house every game. I'm certainly not complaining, but travel is the only downside of this job, and anybody in any industry that travels, people think it's so glamorous, and and there are great parts to it. But you're right. Like when you know the TSA personnel by name, you got a problem. And I know the TSA personnel by name.
A very intelligent person. If you don't know, Jay is an attorney. And so I think I can answer my next question with myself, why you didn't go into coaching, because you're obviously a very intelligent person. So you didn't go into coaching. You don't want to live through all that because you could have done anything when the TV instead. But yeah, the TV route did you ever think about coaching?
Oh yeah. I was an assistant at Duke. I was a graduate assistant for 3 years in the early 90s when Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, and Grant Hill were there. So obviously I did a fabulous job coaching. And I thought I was going to get into it, but I was getting married after my 3rd year as an assistant at Duke. And when I sat down with my wife, my future wife, and we were talking about, what we were going to do. And I told her about, okay, coaching, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to get a job somewhere else. And then if I do well, maybe I'll get the head coaching job at Illinois State, and we'll live in Normal, Illinois. And if I don't screw that up, maybe we get the job at Clemson. And if I don't screw that up, then we can get maybe the job you really want, or a job you really want. And she was going, that sounds like 15 years of moving around and waiting and taking kids out of school. And so that didn't go over very well. But I had a law degree. And so, I wanted her more than I wanted to be a coach. So we just decided that it was best for our family to go in another direction. But I've been, the broadcast thing worked out. I was just practicing law and started doing radio broadcasting on the side to keep my sanity. And it worked out for me. I was pretty lucky, but I've had offers to get back into basketball on the competitive side over the years. But for one family reason or another, I've said no. And now that I'm going to be 59 and, right around the Christmas holiday, and I'm kind of looking at my life going, I don't know if I want to jump back into, any kind of cauldron like coaching or front office stuff right now, but because it might affect my summer golf schedule.
Rick Bozich joins us now from WDRB.com. Do you know Rick? I'm sure from over the years.
Who doesn't know Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer? Everybody knows Rick.
I assumed.
When he walks into the room, everything stops. People are asking for autographs and they want advice on their careers. But nobody asks for fashion advice from Rick. I've noticed that.
Yeah, there's a reason. There is a reason.
I had to take my dog to the doggy daycare this morning because last week when we were on the air, I had to abruptly end our interview because she started barking.
Ruby got upset with the neighbors.
Is Ruby, Rick? I don't mean to take over this interview, but is when you go to doggy daycare, is Ruby thrilled to death to go? And then when you pick her up, she's like, I'd rather not leave.
Pretty much you nailed it. She's very excited and her tail's wagging and her ears are flopping. And then when she gets back in the car, she gives me the.
Yeah, that's my dog. Same thing.
It's the
I'm
fun
sure it's
time,
not
man.
us. I'm sure it's a dog thing. It has nothing to do with dog family issues.
Rick's a walker, man. He's always out. Doesn't matter the way. He's like the weather, the mailman. It doesn't matter. Snow, sleet, rain. He's always out there. He's got his coffee in his hand now. I can see.
Yes, sir. I was late night at the KFC Yum Center last night, so I had to perk back up.
Yeah, Jay, you could be in Louisville. That could be one of the stops right now that on your coaching career. That would not be a fun one to be. Rick, Louisville.
No, they love me in Louisville. They love me.
Louisville loves you. I'm just saying.
Without me, they wouldn't have the 86 championship banner hanging up there. They love me there.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Rick, did you know you were on the same you got cut by the same coach that cut Steve Popovich, or you were
Greg Popovich? That's correct. Bill Metcalf was the varsity coach at Merrillville High School, just south of Gary. Greg's 4 years older than me. He got cut as a sophomore and came back and started for 2 years and went to the Air Force. I got cut as a junior and never made it back and went to journalism school. We both made the right decision.
Oh, man. And speaking of, I'm sorry, you have great Bob Knight stories. When you worked at him, Hubert Davis talked about that yesterday. He enjoyed his time at ESPN. He had the opportunity to work with Coach Bob Knight then, and Rick. Rick has some great stories as a student writer getting kicked off the bus by Bob Knight. Where was that?
Iowa City. I wasn't kicked off the bus. I was late to the bus. I'll give you the real Cliff Notes version. But back in the day, Coach Knight let the student newspaper travel with the team, and that was the 75 team, which was maybe better than the 76 team. They were rolling undefeated. Back then, it was Saturday, Monday games. Saturday was in Iowa City. Monday was in Minnesota. And back then, you also had to win the Big Ten to go to the NCAA tournament. So after a Saturday night game in Iowa City in the old field house, I didn't have a paper on Sunday, the student paper. So I went up after I did my interviews to the SID office at Iowa City to get my stats and maybe get a few extra ones for some of the players. And another Big Ten game was on the radio, which was going to have an impact on who was second place to Indiana. So I looked down the floor and the players were still there. So I figured I could duck my head back in and listen to a few more minutes and get the latest score and give it to everybody and be a hero. And the second time I looked back out on the floor, they were all gone. And I panicked. And I grabbed my stuff and ran out to the parking lot, and the bus was pulling away. And, I had no money, no credit card. I don't know what would happen to me. And luckily, some of the players saw me and they stopped the bus. And I walked over to the bus, and as I got to the door, the bus pulled away a second time. And it went about 20 feet, and it stopped, and the door opened, and I walked over, and Coach Knight said, "Where in the hell do you think you've been?" And I started to say something. He goes, "I don't give a shit what your explanation is. Even IDS almost got left in Iowa City. Now go sit your ass down." And the players erupted in joy because for once they got somebody else got their butt chewed out instead of them. And after that, I was 20 minutes early for every bus the rest of my life.
Oh my God. I'd like to see Knight describe to the bus driver how to pull off the perfect pull up and stop move with a bus. Doing it with a car is easy, but that's hilarious stuff. Jay, I'm sure, do you have the opportunity to work with him at ESPN as well, I'm sure?
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time with Coach Knight. We actually used to go on golf trips together almost every summer for a number of years. We went a couple times to Ireland and Scotland, other destinations. And he was fantastic to play golf with. I mean, it was
because
like
he was terrible, right?
No, he wasn't too bad, really. Everybody sees that video, him and Sam Carmichael, where he's trying to get out of a bunker and cursing and all that stuff. But I always, Coach Knight is a great companion, and we spent a lot of time together. But on the times that we would go play golf, we were playing overseas one time, and I was playing with Coach and his college roommate Gary Gearhart from Ohio State, and he had hit a ball short of a green, and we were walking up to the green, and he says to me, "Hey, let me borrow your sand wedge." And so I gave it to him, and he hits his shot, and then I noticed he had his sand wedge with him. And I said, "Well, why did you need my sand wedge if you got yours?" And he says, "Because if I hit a bad shot, I didn't want to throw mine." I couldn't tell whether he was serious or it was just all a joke setup. But what was amazing to me, Jim and Rick, was wherever we were in the world, people recognized him. And we're somewhere in the outer regions of Scotland playing some no-name golf course because he wouldn't shell out for the really good ones. And people would come up, they'd want pictures, and some older gentleman and his wife came up and he says, "Coach, I'd love to get my a picture made with you and my wife." And Coach Knight's sitting down, and the woman walks up to him. She was standing next to him, and he kind of put his arm around her waist, and the guy's taking the picture, and then he brings the camera down and he says, Coach, I don't think I've ever seen my wife smile like that. And Knight without missing a beat says, well, you don't know where I have my hand.
Oh man, he saved the good ones. Before you joined us, Rick, I talked to Jay about his unbelievable, relentless travel schedule, but that brings him to Bloomington tonight for the North Carolina-Indiana game, part of the ACC Big Ten Challenge, which unfortunately and sadly is the last ACC Big Ten Challenge. But tonight's game, two of the marquee teams in both leagues, Indiana and UNC, even though they've lost a couple, that does not take any luster off for me. And North Carolina is just as dangerous. They're just as good. They're just as well coached. So I think this is going to be just a phenomenal game. But this environment is going to be electric. And that's one of the things that seems to be lost on Hubert a little bit from the presser yesterday. But also I think that's part of gamesmanship of keeping, hey, you don't want to be any disadvantage for yourself or your players, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the students are already lining up or have already started lining up. I heard it was $450 to get in the building, any of the ticket resale areas. But, Carolina's plays at Duke. They played at Virginia. They've played at a lot of tough places to play. And the point he made was they played in the Dome last year in front of 77,000 people. So they're used to those kinds of environment. The difference between that is obviously these are all going to be fans of one team. And you get about 3 rows of seats behind the bench. And other than that, that's all you get. So, yeah, it'll be electric. But Carolina's got veteran guys. I mean, what do they have? 2 seniors and 3 seniors and a junior, and Nance is a senior. 4 seniors and a junior. Is that what it is? Or 3 seniors and 2 juniors? They got older dudes who've been around.
Yeah, they're very, very obviously talented, returning from last year's national championship game, and they added Nance to that lineup. And have they gelled yet, adding him as a new addition to that? Because I know it takes a while to get everyone on the same page.
I think they have. I don't think Pete Nance in the place of Brady Manick from last year is the issue for Carolina. Like, look, they're the same team and have the same competitive fire that made the championship game last year, but they're just not. Their guards haven't shot it well. Both Caleb Love and RJ Davis combined are shooting 41% from the field overall, and that's combined. I think it's 26% from 3. And that's not their history. It certainly wasn't last year. Both of them were around 40%. And so, but they take almost half of Carolina's shots, both Davis and Love. And look, some of them, do I question? I mean, Caleb Love's one of those players when he shoots challenge shots and he takes a number of them. When they go in, you're thinking, what a courageous shot. And when he misses, you're going, why did he take that? And but he's got the ability to make those things. But the rest of the team, aside from Love and Davis, are shooting like 53%. So it's not. I don't think this is a long-term issue for Carolina. They haven't offensive rebounded the same way they're capable of. Part of that's the shots they're taking. Longer shots means longer rebounds, and that takes Baycott and Nance away from getting quite as many. But those are issues that I think will be hashed out in time. And I don't know when this happened, Jim and Rick, but it used to be that, and Rick will remember this from Louisville in the past, when Denny Crum used to play a really ambitious non-conference schedule back when they're in the Metro, and they'd get beat. Schleps like us would say, "Oh man, that's Denny Crum toughening up his team for March. What a great strategy." Now you lose and you suck. And I don't know when that happened. You don't, like, I'm not saying anybody wants to lose games, but we throw everything into March and then, team loses a game. And like, how did North Carolina drop down to 18, losing the games they did? I mean, that makes no sense to me. They're not the 18th best team in the country, and they're better than that. And aren't we saying that, well, we'll put them at 18. We clearly don't know what we're doing. We clearly didn't know what we were doing putting them at 1. So let's admit that publicly. We don't know what we're doing.
Well, and the other thing is, definitely to show my age, I remember when the season didn't even start till December the 1st.
Right.
Now it's November 30th, and we already know everything we know about every team and the way this is going to unfold. It's ridiculous. When you played, when the season might have crept into maybe late November by then, but in the 70s when I was in college, December 1st was the official first day of college basketball. Today is November 30th, and everybody's played 7 or 8 games, and we've already got it figured out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When I played, we started around the Thanksgiving holiday, give or take. And practice, everybody started October 15th. Now it's way before that. You start 45 days before your first game, whenever that is. So it's become pro sports in every way. But and all that's fine. It's just the idea that, I heard, after Portland, Purdue's the best team in the country. After Virginia beat Baylor, Virginia's the best team in the country.
Yeah.
And look, people may be right on that stuff, but we're having some pretty wild swings right now in judgment, and none of it's going to matter. People aren't going to remember these games in another month. We'll be moved on to complaining about something else.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Gonzaga, Michigan State have all lost twice. And they're all really good teams, all capable of going to the Final Four. And, they might be better off for losing early in the year because they figured out that's what Crum, he wanted to know what the flaws were in his team. I want to know what we need to get better at. So I think in today's world, and I hate to blame it all on social media, but there's no acceptance of failure or no patience to learn from failure. And as soon as you have any failure, then fire this guy, fire that guy, cut this guy, start this guy. It's gives me a headache.
Unless you're a football coach and you can get one of those 10-year guaranteed contracts that they seem to be handing out left.
But in Louisville this year, when Louisville was 2-3, everybody wanted Scott Satterfield gone. And then they won 5 of the last 6. They did lose to Kentucky, but he ended up doing a very good job. And, he's going to be back. But if you listen to the impulses of fans after the first patch of adversity, it's like, get out.
The Phil Knight event that just happened, should we expect to see more of those? We talk about the early season not having these great games. Man, that was a bunch of great games to watch. I enjoyed watching those. Those were just Nike schools, I assume. So I guess Adidas is going to have to do something similar if they want to do that. But that was pretty cool basketball for early on in the season.
It was great. I don't know how many games we had on, 32. ESPN had like 200 people on site to put all those games on. And
Wow.
Every time you turned around, there was a really good game on. You could walk from building to building. For a fan, it was great. I don't know how the tickets worked, whether you could actually do all that stuff, but it was for a broadcaster. I mean, it was a dream come true. And it was I think those early tournaments are great. The players really like them. They get tired, obviously, but you get to play 3 games without intense practices, and players enjoy that. Coaches say they don't like it. Coaches say, "Well, we'd rather practice. We haven't had practices." If you gave me, when I was playing, if you gave me a choice of we can play a game or we can practice, I would take a game every time. Practice was a little more difficult than a game.
Have you even been home yet?
I went home. Yeah, I went home for 18 hours, and then came here. So my wife would have preferred if I was home for 12, because most of those would have been asleep.
You have to excuse me because I was at the Louisville game last night and didn't watch TV. Did you do a game last night or not?
No, I was here. So I came and watched Indiana practice yesterday afternoon, and Coach Knight was actually at practice.
I was going to say, is that the one with Coach Knight? Was that? Very cool.
Yeah, he came yesterday and got the chance to sit down with Coach Knight and Ted Kitchell and Randy Whitman. And so it was really nice to see him.
What's it like for you you're in all these different environments, Jay? You know all these people and you have for years. You've been a part of it, player, coach, like you said. But when you're in a place, and it doesn't have to be Indiana, it could be anywhere. It could be Roy Williams. But getting to be around guys like Bob Knight and Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski, that still has to be a great thrill just because of what they've accomplished, who they are, and what they mean to this game.
Of course, I think for all of us, those legends were part of my, growth in the game and my love of the game. But I get just as much enjoyment out of what's new. It's the natural evolution of the game. When I was a kid, I grew up in Los Angeles, and John Wooden was everything. And he retired when I was in 1975, when I was in 5th grade. And I thought he was the oldest man in the world. And he was 65. He retired at 65.
Yes, he did.
And now these guys are going. I watched Syracuse last night for a while, and Boeheim's 78. And part of me is like, these guys are. I'm happy they're coaching this long, but then you're going, there are a bunch of younger guys that are really capable that are not coaching at these places because of how long some of these guys are going. So there's I really enjoy getting to know all the new players, the younger coaches, because they're the future of the game. And to me, that's as much of a thrill as seeing, what I recognize from the past.
Then you got Mike Woodson, who is a newer but older coach at the same time. So he brings a little both of that. Speaking of practice, what did you see? What did you learn that you didn't already know about this Indiana team?
Well, they're very good. I've been really impressed with Indiana in the early season. They haven't played this hellacious schedule yet. It's coming tonight. But that game against Xavier showed what they're capable of. I think this is a really, really talented basketball team that's got athleticism, it's got length, and then it's got a star in Trace Jackson Davis. And as long as they stay healthy, with the way they defend and as physical as they are, and then as efficient as they've been on offense, they do a good job of balancing, getting the ball inside, getting out in transition, and then attacking the paint. And they can knock down shots. It's not a dead eye shooting perimeter team, but they can shoot it. I think they've got a great chance in the Big Ten. I think it's the teams I've seen, Purdue and Indiana, are the two best teams.
Rick,
as you watch Mike Woodson, what he's trying to achieve at Indiana. How much value do you put in the fact that he gets the whole culture and he understands what Indiana basketball is all about? They went through a stretch, I guess, where they didn't have Indiana guys, and it seemed like after the decision to move on from Archie Miller, that was something they wanted to do. Do you think that's of any value?
I think it makes people feel better that Mike has the Indiana pedigree, and you can say he gets Indiana basketball. I mean, I tend to think, I've thought about this a lot, Rick, and I know you have too. When you look at some of these places that have great histories, and Indiana is at or near the top of that list of great history and tradition, the person that started that history and tradition didn't go to school there.
Right.
Bob Knight went to Ohio State. And he's inextricably linked and forever linked with Indiana. So much so that when you walk into the building, that's the first thing you think of. You see all those banners and the candy striped pants and all that, and you think of Knight. Coach K didn't go to Duke; he went to West Point, and trained here at Indiana for a year with Coach Knight. And so he was a grad assistant on the 75 team that you talked about with Laskowski, Green, and all the guys that stayed for the 76 championship. So I think that's helpful, but I think what's more helpful is he's successful, and they're winning now, because I think this is true of anybody. If you take this job and you don't win, they're not going to care where you went to school. They'll fire you just as fast as if you went to Ohio State or Michigan or whatever. The people expect to win here, and Mike's winning and is going to win.
And now we've got the ACC Big Ten Challenge going away. You have the SEC, ACC next year. I'm assuming we're going to end up probably with Big 10, Big 12 or something along those lines. The change. College basketball has changed so much since you were a player as you've been coming along. But I know you agree with a lot of these changes. I saw something yesterday that Hunter Dickinson is involved with, where they're trying to get more revenue sharing among the players, a players association. They're trying to get that movement going, which at some point is going to have to be successful, because I just don't see how they can stop it. But it's do you think everything is moving in the right direction, Jay, for the players, for the game?
I think so, Jim. It's been obviously been slow, and it's been incremental. People have said about NIL after the recent Supreme Court decision that this is the biggest, and most of them have been college administrators, so this is the biggest change that college basketball's ever seen, or college sports. And I differ with that. I don't think it is the biggest. I think the biggest happened when I was in college in 1984. I was a member of a committee, an NCAA committee, when I was in college, called the NCAA Long Range Planning Committee. And I'm not sure how good of a job we did if long range planning was our focus. But I was an advocate for player rights back then, and got shouted down in meetings. And I never said anything publicly, because I was a member of a committee and I was supposed to support the committee's decisions. But in 1984, that was the last time the NCAA was before the United States Supreme Court, and it was the schools suing the NCAA over their right to be on television. The NCAA used to tell schools how often they could be on TV, and Georgia and Oklahoma and others took the NCAA to court and won under the same theory the players recently won under in the Alston decision, an antitrust theory. And that opened the floodgates for schools to sell their media rights, for conferences to sell their media rights. And all of a sudden, college sports went from making hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars. And coaches that were making $70,000 to $100,000 a year were all of a sudden making millions. And I don't remember anybody saying, hey, we got to pump the brakes on this. Like, we shouldn't be making this kind of money. This is not what college sports is about. But now that the players are getting a few bucks, and it is only a few bucks relative to what the enterprise is making, now we hear, the house is on fire. What are we going to do? And you're like, hey, wait a minute now. The players are going to be paid soon. And if soon means 5 years, 3 years, whatever, 10, I don't know. But relatively soon, the schools are going to be signing players to contracts. And that's going to be the way this works, just like they do with employees, administrators, coaches. It's no longer going to be get what you want out in the marketplace. It's going to be, we're going to sign you so that we can have a modicum of control for the money we're paying you, and just like they do with every other employee. So that's coming in the future, and it's going to make things easier and more streamlined. There'll be fewer transfers. It'll make it more of a legitimate business instead of what we've been running all these years.
Will that include, if you sign with us, you've got to stay for X number of years?
Yeah, it could. I mean, some of that will depend on state laws with regard to non-compete provisions, if you want to have that in a contract. But yeah, if you sign an exclusive contract, it'll be similar to coaches contracts. But one of the things that I've always laughed at with coaches contracts is, you never see in the NBA or NFL when a coach gets fired, that like say the Rams fire McVay. Well, they can't just call up Bill Belichick and offer him the job. He's under contract. But in college, where they say they have all this integrity, guy loses his job at one school and they go backdoor somebody under contract and hire him away. So one president is sanctioning, go interfere with another school's contract with an employee. And everybody just does it. And they may have a buyout or things like that, but tortious interference with contract with regard to coaches is allowed in college, and then they want to preach to us what integrity looks like, and I turn a deaf ear to that. I can't stand to listen to that stuff.
Well, I don't think most people are accustomed to having an analyst that's also an attorney that knows the laws, that knows the different ins and outs of things and tort and all of that stuff, because it doesn't happen. Very few. Howard Cosell, was he the last attorney sports analyst besides yourself?
There are a bunch of them. There are a bunch of attorneys out there. But a lot of times talking about this stuff is not what people want to hear. So I only do it when we're talking about policy. Like, I don't go to games. Like, I'm not going to go to the game tonight and look at all the money being generated and say, I can't believe the players aren't getting it. I don't do that. But I actually knew Howard Cosell. He was one of the people that talked me into going to law school. And I'm sure my wife, when we, on the rare occasion when we argue, she laments that decision when she'll say every once, "Don't give me that lawyer BS. I don't want to hear your lawyer BS."
How did you meet Howard Cosell?
I met him first at ABC Sports. I was a runner for ABC when I was in college. So I used to work during the summer times they called it production assistant, but you're really a runner. So if somebody needed coffee,
I was that for CBS.
Yeah. So if somebody needed coffee or a producer needed his or her airline ticket changed or whatever, I did whatever I was asked to do. And then when I was a senior, a law professor at Duke named John Wiestard had something called the National Sports Forum. And because I was on that NCAA committee and I was pretty tied in as an athlete to NCAA policy, he had something called the National Sports Forum and Howard Cosell was one of the panelists, and I was one as well. So we had a couple of different events that we had meals at, and I got to know him a little bit. He was very nice to me. He had been retired, so he wasn't broadcasting, every day anymore. But what a presence he was. Dr. Harry Edwards was on the panel, John Underwood. It was Digger Phelps. And I actually, part of my job as a runner at ABC was Digger Phelps was doing the Olympics for ABC Sports. And I had to shuttle him around, including pick up his dry cleaning, and I had to take him to the airport and pick him up.
Get his different colored markers.
Yeah, no, he didn't have those back then. He was a little more sane. But I had to pick him up at the airport in Minneapolis, and I got lost on the way to the hotel. There was no GPS on your phone back then. And I remember him yelling at me for a good period of time. It's like, "What are you doing? Looking at real estate, Bilas? I'm glad you didn't come to Notre Dame," and all this stuff. It was not good.
I got to ask you, how is Coach K doing in being out of the game this season? Have you talked to him much? And does he go to games or does he stay away?
He has not gone to a game yet because he doesn't want to be a distraction. And, you go to Cameron, if he went to a home game, there's nowhere to hide there. So people, every turnover, they'd be looking up to see what he thinks or something. There's no box that he could hide in. So I don't think he wants to be a distraction to John Shire and the team. But he's obviously watching every dribble of the games. And I called him, I can't remember how long ago this was, a couple of weeks ago, and called him just to check in, say hello. And when he answered the phone, I said, "How the pickleball game's going?" and he said, "No, actually, I'm busier than I've ever been. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this." And I said, "I was just kidding. Like, it's okay for you to be retired. You don't have to be busy." But I think he's enjoying it in a lot of ways. But it's clearly an adjustment for him, not having, all of this heavy responsibility all the time. But I think he'll get used to it pretty quickly. He said he's spending way more time at home with his grandchildren and family that he feels like he missed out on, even though he might not have processed how much he was missing. I think he's really enjoying that.
Good.
Jay, I cannot thank you enough, man, for taking the time. I know you've got to get ready for tonight's broadcast, so I'll let you do that. But thank you so much for being so kind gracious with your time. I look forward to running into you tonight.
I hope so, Jim. Yeah, it's going to be a long day grinding it out, getting ready for the broadcast tonight. People don't understand what hard work kind of nose to the grindstone, lifting heavy objects, coal miner stuff, iron lung. It's good, black lung. It is a brutal job to sit courtside at these games. And I hope people really appreciate the sacrifice that Rick and I put in day after day after day. We are national heroes for doing it.
That's absolutely. I concur. Jay Bilas from ESPN. Thank you so much.
Night,
Make
Jay.
sure you catch him on
tonight,
the broadcast tonight. We've got more coming up with the great Scott Davenport, the head coach for Bellarmine. And I'm going to let you all in on a secret that I bet he doesn't even know. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry down in Southern Indiana and Sellersburg. Make sure you stop by, see Dr. J, and keep that championship smile. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Hey, this is John.
Rusty, I'm just getting ready to do this Zoom broadcast with this IU guy. Good. It was storming the whole way. I know.
Yeah, there you go. I was getting ready to say, take him out of the. He may say something about Rick we don't want to know.
I know.
Yeah, so I apologize to him. Make sure you apologize to him when he comes on for the miscommunication and stuff.
I will. Plus, he had to get his butt beat by Kentucky last night. Damn. They played so well in the first half, too. Hey, Scott, how are you, sir?
Good.
Man, you guys played a great first half.
Well, we played more than that.
Well, yes. Played a great game. Period.
We led. They never led at a media timeout to the under 12.
Wow.
Well,
now, they led some, but we came back. So, in other words, at the next media timeout, we would have the lead. That was 7 deep. We led the game right at 14 minutes. They led at 16 minutes. It was tied. Or they were 16. We were 13 and change, and it was tied like 10 minutes. But, they are Kentucky. Let's be honest.
And it was
we got to get healthy. We've got some banged up guys. Really banged up.
Probably tired too, right? A little jet lag and all that.
No, I don't think so. I mean, hey, if I feel great, they can feel great.
When did you get back from LA?
10 a.m. Monday morning. Our day was 8:30 breakfast, 9:30 walkthrough Sunday, 12 o'clock pregame, 4 o'clock tip, 9:30 bus, 11:45 flight. Landed in Atlanta at 6:20, back to Louisville at 10 o'clock. Practice film at 4:30. No, they're fine. They're just different. I mean, they're not in all that entitlement. They're just not.
30 seconds.
Got to play Poly Pavilion, Cameron, and Rupp Arena, man. Come on.
Here we go, guys.
Love to do that.
Dollars covers your green fees for the next 2 years at Eagle Point. It includes tee times starting as early as up to 10 a.m. with 1 week in advance tee time bookings. You just cover your card fees. Now, there is a limited number of memberships available, so go to eaglepoint.com right now and get yours today.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Wednesday. Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Our good friend Rick Bozich from WDRB.com is still with us. Great segment with Jay Bilas. And now we've got one with Scott Davenport, the head coach at Bellarmine University in Louisville, former D2 school that Scott started out at, if you're not familiar with Southern Indiana, Louisville area, started out at Ballard High School, and they were
whoa. Started out at Aaron's High School, man, as the JV coach.
Oh, my bad. Oh. Aaron's,
tell him, Rick.
Aaron's trade school. I didn't even know about that.
Well, it was Aaron's high school, but we met this young reporter covering the Aaron Central game named Rick Bozich.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Aaron's is a turned into a trade school down in Louisville, but man, that's going way back. I'm thankful. I don't know all that. That means I've got something. I got something to hold on to, but went on to Bellarmine and turned them into a D2 power. Won a national championship. They were always fighting for a national championship. And then Bellarmine made the decision to go to D1. And the thing that you've done it the same way that you did it when they were Division II. Did you know that besides Purdue has the most players from Indiana of any Division I school? The second school of that is Bellarmine.
Absolutely.
Bellarmine is the second Division I school with the most Indiana players on it. I think do you have 8? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Purdue with 9, and then there's Bellarmine. But that you have built your programs through the years that way, not just Indiana, but
Kind of like Bob Knight did, the region, staying right within the region, and you've been very successful with that formula.
Well, to be specific with the Indiana players, they come with poise that I don't think any state in the country can match, because high school basketball is on such a pedestal and they play in incredible environments. So their poise is way, way ahead of the learning curve. I mean, those games all over the state, we've got a signee from Crown Point, but we've had kids from New Albany, Jeff, Providence. I mean, you name it. It's incredible how much poise they play with.
And those are guys that probably would not, some of them wouldn't get a chance to play Division I basketball, maybe, especially as close to home as they're getting to.
Well, Jim, and I'm, in my opinion, and Rick has his opinion, Jim Coyle has his opinion, the biggest lost art in college basketball is the ability to judge talent.
Oh, boy, I agree with you 1,000%.
Because now we just go to social media and how many stars and this and that, and we put a huge emphasis on judging talent. And when I say talent, like, for example, carrying is a special talent, not just the metrics, their vertical, their shooting percentage, etc. But I will say this. If I give a corporate talk, and I'm asked invariably, how did a team win 9 games in 2005 and then in 2011 win a national championship in Division II? Go Division I in year 2, do something that's never been done in the history of college basketball, win the conference automatic qualifier. How? Well, the greatest recruiters in this program are players. I mean, if Rick at WDRB has a phenomenal team, the next great media member would want to join that team. And they're the greatest recruiters in this program are players.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you've built a culture, and I've said this before on the radio here in town. I've written it. You're a difference maker. And I think when there's a lot of great coaches, there's a lot of guys who've achieved a lot of things, but Scott Davenport is somebody who's made a difference. He's changed the way people look at, people respect, people appreciate basketball at Bellarmine. He's built something that's going to last, and he's not done. He's still, in the growing, achieving stage. And you've gotten more. Mike Lepresti, I know, did a great article about you at NCAA.com, and you've gotten a lot of plaudits here in town. But you're sort of one of the great unknown secrets in college basketball, and people need to understand that. Hopefully this opens it up more people in Southern Indiana to say you're somebody who's done something like that.
Well, Rick, no, I'm not embellishing this, but from you, that does mean a lot, because, I mean, you have literally been there every step of the way. I will say this. The first lesson you ever learn in coaching is there's more than one way to be successful. And I cannot be Coach Crum. I cannot be Coach Patino. You have to be you. And use the word culture, and a lot of people do, and I'm not being argumentative, and that's fine. But what we stress here is the word program, which, in my opinion, by definition, means you have a plan. And our plan is academically, it's athletically, it's socially. And this is told to every single person. Then you recruit players who want to become you, not they want you to become them. But I will say this. Coach Calipari was incredible last night and taking the NCAA to task. And boy, do I appreciate that, because, he has a very strong voice in college basketball. But on March the 8th, we won the ASUN Conference Tournament Championship. And that's incredible. In year 2, I mean, it's incredible. On May the 14th, we had 5 young men earn 8 degrees. 2 masters in business administration, a master's in education, and 5 bachelor's degrees. Don't tell me you can't do both. If they get an opportunity beyond Bellarmine, that is unbelievable. It's happened to 24 guys, but they're doing it with a Bellarmine degree in their pocket.
You got a friend of Sheldon Christmas from Lagodi there, one of your GAs, looks like.
Well, he's one of our managers. He will be our GA next year. He will be a heck of a basketball coach. Sheldon Christmas will be a phenomenal basketball coach. It's been like that since day one he's been here. I also saw they referenced Coach Kurt Hoff. I could coach gentlemen like Kurt Hoff. I'll coach till I'm 100. He's an incredible young man. Holds the all-time Indiana State tournament record with 19 rebounds in a championship game.
He had 5 threes last night, too, in Rupp, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And last year, if I told you to go in the gym till he makes 5 threes 1 year ago when he reported, you better take lunch with you. Take lunch with you. But again, that's having a program. I mean, but he deserves all the credit, but that's having a program.
Rick, part of what you said a minute ago about Scott, I think part of the thing about Scott is he's always seemed like he's wanted to build where he was at Bellarmine, built to build Bellarmine, and to stay. You can tell that there's no wandering eye. I think people appreciate that they respect that. They come to count on that as one of the things of continuity for them. So I think that's a part of so many people follow you and follow what you're doing there and are fans of yours that weren't like, I have no allegiance to Bellarmine, but I follow them because I know what you're doing and it's cool and I love it. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. And so your grassroots building your fandom and your program.
I just wish the countless number of people in this community that go out of their way to compliment me and about this part. I just wish they could tell the players. Like, I'm going to tell the players, hey, Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat, man, he said, and they're like, oh, yeah, right.
Well,
no, I mean,
the first thing they're going to say is, who the hell is he?
No, but they don't, let's be honest. If a Louisville player walks into a local establishment, everybody in the place is going to stop. And that's not going to happen with a Bellarmine player. But I'll say to them, oh, you all won't believe how this happened. I just sent them a text, just 2 minutes while I was waiting, that Coach Calipari just sent me about last night. I just shared it with our whole team. My phone's blowing up right now with all the acknowledgement. And I just wish all the people that say things to me could say it to them. I mean, they hate it. They are old school. They live in this gym. They embrace it. We went to Poly Pavilion. We arrived on Wednesday, played Loyola Marymount on Friday, UCLA on Sunday. We practiced on the first night in Coach Wooden's first gym. He practiced there from 1948 to 1965. I had them research Coach Wooden. From the pyramid success to the championships, on and on and on. You should do that. Now, we played Kentucky. I had them research. They know Coach Cal. A lot of them know he coached at Memphis and Kentucky. They don't know he was an NBA head coach or that he was at UMass. How much do you think our players knew about Adolph Rupp?
They don't even know who he was, probably.
No, but we're playing in Rupp Arena. They should know that. That's important.
Yeah, Bob Knight players all had notebooks.
Yes.
All
in the locker room when he talked to him.
Most of them still have those notebooks to this day. But yeah, they have notebooks of what stuff they had to write down of similar of what you're doing.
Can I tell a quick Bob Knight story?
Please, we would be remiss if you didn't.
Billy Reed, rest in peace, calls me and says, you can't say a word, but he's coming to Louisville to do a UConn-Louisville game, 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm picking him up at the airport. If he agrees, will you let him come talk to your team? And Billy Reed was a paying season ticket holder. He's in the locker room every night. He loved Bellarmine. Taught here. He loved Bellarmine. So he goes, now, I swear you cannot say a word. Because if something happens and he doesn't come, we don't want to disappoint him. So I hold my word. So he goes, can we park right at the door? I said, well, I've got one maintenance guy, and I won't tell him who, but I'm going to tell him he better be there to get that car parked. So we do it. He walks in. We're practicing. We're finishing practice. He says, "This is a great-looking group of boys. I want to talk to them." I said, "Coach, you want to talk to them here inside?" Inside. He goes in that locker room, and I mean, I'm sitting. The lockers at that time were like an L. He's right in the middle where the L goes both sides. I'm behind him because I want to be able to see their eyes. I mean, we had 7 Indiana kids on that team. Braden Hobbs, Justin Benedetti, Luke Sprague, Jeremy Kendall, on and on and on. I mean, they are locked in. It's unbelievable. And he's getting amped up now. He's really getting into it. And he's so imposing size. He's so big. And a phone goes off.
Oh, boy.
And I'm looking like, oh, my God, he's going to kill one of these players, and I'm going to witness it. He reaches in his pocket, takes his phone out, just silences it, hangs up on it, puts it back in his pocket. And he gets amped up again. And he's right at the very end, and he's been just, oh, my gosh. And it goes off again. So he answers it. So I'm talking to the team. I'll call you. And then he gets real quiet. And he looks at him and said, "Any of you boys married?" They're all like, "No, sir, Coach." He said, "Well, when you're married, that's how you handle that." Well, they don't know if they can laugh or not. They are like, "Can we laugh?" Well, he leaves. It's a Friday. We had a game on Saturday. And by noon the next day, they had an assignment to have a typed up, very formal thank you note, letter. It was due at noon the next day. And we packaged it, FedExed it right off to him. This is when he was living outside of Texas Tech. And the letter he wrote back to that team was incredible. And that team went on to win the national championship. And he sends a letter to them saying, "I watched those games. And I don't know if there could be a bigger source of credibility and appreciation than that letter to those players." See, and now, some people got really mad at me because we had Coach Knight there. Well, Coach Knight did this. Coach Knight did that. That's not important. We all know that. What's important? He didn't have to do that. He came in Louisville, go to the Yum Center, do the game, go hotel, get on a plane, go home. No, that's what's important. He wanted to go make a difference with young people. He did not have to do that. That's what's important. Now, the content, oh my gosh, it was incredible. He was so good.
He always is. Man, what a great story. Well, let your players know that there's a lot more people watching them than they think. I mean, you guys played at UK.
What was the reaction to what Eric Musselman said about him?
Eric Musselman would not know Scott Davenport if he snuck in a closed practice. He wouldn't know me from Adam. And in this day and age, it blew up. And they're all like, "Coach, what about Coach Muss? What about what he said?" I mean, they again, there's no entitlement, and they do appreciate things. Mick Cronin and I had a long talk last weekend, about college basketball, about these kids and et cetera. And it was a very heartfelt talk. And he said, just keep coaching. Just keep coaching them, man. And if you're a teacher and you've got really, really hungry learners, you're going to have a great class. And that's practice every day. It is every day.
Well, Scott, man, people should be able to see why you're so successful and why I enjoy following you and why everybody else does as well. Especially if you're down in Southern Indiana, Louisville area. If you're not following Bellarmine basketball, where are you?
Well, people are sick of it, me saying it, but honestly, and I believe it every ounce of sincerity, I am the luckiest coach who's ever coached any sport, any level. I am.
Well, I know they love you. They love you, man.
My mother passed away 13 years ago, and right before she passed away, she said, Scotty, if you really, really, really work hard, and she came from nothing and owned her own business for 43 years, and she said, you might get a real job, make something out of yourself. and I've never had a job because a job would be a vocation. Think of that. Man. That's a vocation. I've had an advocation being for those young people because people did that for me.
We cannot thank you enough, brother, and look forward to having you back on. We'll follow you as the season goes on and keep up and get you back on here.
Thank you, guys. Rick,
right.
It's a long way, man, from Aaron Central.
Yes, it is. I think about it every time I drive by Second Muhammad Ali. I think about that's the place where I met you when I walked in that door.
I can't remember if I had breakfast, and I remember Rick Bozich at that game. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, buddy. Scott Davenport, the coach from Bellarmine in Louisville. Greatly appreciated him. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Rick, I will see you tonight.
I'll be there.
Look forward to it, brother. Have a safe travels, and thank you so much. Appreciate you jumping on here today.
Okay. See you tonight, Jim.
Great show today. Cannot thank you guys enough. Awesome, incredible show. Bob Kravitz from The Athletic, Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, Jay Bilas from ESPN, Scott Davenport, the head coach at Bellarmine, and Rick Bozich, the Hall of Famer from WDRB.com. Holy cow, what a lineup that was. Man, and most importantly, you guys. Cannot thank you guys enough. Appreciate you all so much for being here as always. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Tonight, after the game with Todd Leary and Charlie Miller. So it's going to be a great night. Indiana basketball taking on North Carolina. We're going to be there live after the game for that. Make sure you tune in for the post-game show. Thanks so much. Until tonight, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.